He told me to pack my things. In front of my coworkers. In front of the executives. In front of the man who thought he owned my future. He gave me 4 to 5 minutes to disappear. What he didn't know was that the desk he fired me from belonged to the woman who owned the entire building. And when you fire the wrong woman, the truth doesn't just come out. It takes everything down with it. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to Tales by Laura, because these are the stories where betrayal meets its reckoning, and silence finally gets a voice. My name is Amara, and the day my director publicly fired me was the same day he accidentally signed his own downfall. I wasn't supposed to have power. I wasn't supposed to have influence. I wasn't even supposed to be in the room. But sometimes the woman they ignore is the one holding the keys. And this is a story of how a single sentence, "You have 4 to 5 minutes. Leave your desk," turned into the moment an empire collapsed, and a hidden owner finally stepped into the light. Let me tell you what really happened. The email arrived while I was halfway through my morning coffee. No greeting. No signature. Just a calendar invite that froze the air in my lungs. Executive Performance Review, 9 a.m. That alone was strange. I wasn't part of the executive team. On paper, I was just Amara Collins, Senior Operations Analyst at Ridgeway Solutions, a rapidly growing logistics and tech firm in downtown Fairmont City. My job was to clean up messy data, streamline broken systems, and quietly fix problems other people created. That was the story they believed. The truth was more complicated. 5 years earlier, when Ridgeway was little more than a desperate startup with unpaid interns and a broken business plan, I invested $14.7 million of my inheritance into it through a private holding company called Blackstone Harbor Group. I structured it so my ownership was invisible, not because I was ashamed, but because I wanted to see what people did when they didn't think a powerful woman was watching. That investment gave me 61.3% ownership. The majority. The company belonged to me. But no one inside Ridgeway knew that. Not the board. Not HR. Not even Grant Holloway, the arrogant director of operations who strutted through the office like he built the place with his bare hands. I slipped my laptop into my bag and headed for the elevator, my heels clicking against marble that I had technically paid for. When I stepped onto the executive floor, something was off. Conversations died. Phones were set down. People avoided my eyes. Then I saw Grant. He was standing outside the boardroom with his arms crossed, lips tight, a smug look curling at the edges of his mouth. "Amara Collins," he said loudly. "Get in here." Every head turned. I walked in calmly. "What's going on?" I asked. Grant didn't answer right away. He waited until every board member was watching. "You've been a problem," he said. "You question leadership. You slow down decisions. You make people uncomfortable." I almost laughed. "You mean I don't let you lie in meetings?" I said quietly. The room tensed. Grant's face reddened. "You don't know your place," he snapped. "And I'm done tolerating you." Then he said the words that changed everything. "You have 4 to 5 minutes. Gather everything and leave your desk." The room went silent. My coworkers stared. Grant smiled. "You're fired." I didn't flinch. I just looked at him. "Are you sure?" I asked. He leaned closer. "Very sure." That's when I smiled. Not because I was scared, but because Grant Holloway had just fired the woman who owned his job, and he had no idea. I packed my desk the way you do when you don't plan on coming back. Slowly, deliberately, almost tenderly. Every pen I placed into my bag reminded me of how many late nights I'd spent fixing problems that weren't mine. Every folder I slid out of my drawer reminded me of the deals I'd quietly cleaned up so Grant could take credit in meetings. Across the open floor, people were pretending to work. But no one was working. They were watching. Tasha, one of the junior analysts, caught my eye. She was only 23, fresh out of college, and Grant had already reduced her to a bundle of nerves with his daily humiliation sessions. Her lips trembled when she whispered, "I'm so sorry, Ms. Collins." I smiled softly. "Don't be. Just remember what you saw today." That confused her. Good. Grant stood near the glass wall of his office, arms folded, jaw tight. He was enjoying this, watching me pack like a criminal being evicted from my own life. He had no idea that everything in this building, every chair, every server, Every floor technically belonged to me. I slipped my phone out and opened my email. To Lena Whitaker. Subject: Clause 9C initiated. I hesitated for half a second before hitting send. Not because I was afraid. Because once I did, there would be no turning back. 5 years earlier, when Ridgway was desperate for funding, they hadn't wanted me. Not really. They'd wanted my money, not my voice. So I gave them exactly that. Capital without presence. I created Blackstone Harbor Group, a blind trust that owned my shares while keeping my name invisible. Grant was hired 2 years later, and from the first meeting, I knew he was dangerous. Men like him didn't just want success, they wanted obedience. The moment I challenged him in a planning meeting, he'd smiled in that thin, cruel way. Let's keep this simple, Amara, he'd said. Leave the strategy to leadership. But I didn't, and that's why he fired me. My phone vibrated. Lena, Amara, are you sure? Once this starts, it can't be stopped. I typed back. Me. He humiliated me in front of the board. 3 dots. Then. Lena. Then let's correct the mistake. Security finally approached. Ms. Collins, we were told to escort you out. I nodded calmly. That won't be necessary. I picked up my bag and walked toward the elevator. Grant watched, smiling like he'd just won a war. But wars aren't won by noise. They're won by leverage. The elevator doors closed, and Ridgway Solutions began to crumble from the inside. The elevator doors closed behind me with a soft metallic whisper, sealing off the executive floor where Grant Holloway still stood, confident and smug, thinking he had just crushed an insignificant employee. I exhaled slowly as the elevator descended. Not in fear. In preparation. My phone vibrated in my palm before the doors even reached the lobby. Near Harrington. I answered without saying a word. He fired you, didn't he? She asked. Yes, I replied. In front of the board. No warning. No HR. He wanted an audience. There was a sharp inhale on the other end of the line. That was reckless, Nia said. And it legally hands you the company. The elevator door slid open, revealing Ridgway's grand lobby, marble floors, polished chrome, and a wall of digital screens displaying stock projections I had quietly helped build years ago. Activate it, I said. I already have, Nia replied. Clause 9C is live. You are now the controlling authority over Ridgway Solutions. I walked through the lobby slowly, my heels echoing in a way they never had before. Security guards looked at me differently now, confused, uncertain, sensing that something had shifted but not yet knowing what. Outside, the air was thick with the smell of rain and exhaust. I stepped into the underground garage, leaned against my car, and opened my laptop. The Blackstone Harbor control portal glowed on the screen. One by one, the company's internal systems began changing color, green to yellow, yellow to red, as executive permissions were strict, frozen, or rerouted. Grant had no idea yet. Inside the building, he was still enjoying his little victory. He leaned back in his leather chair, replaying the scene in his mind, me standing there, everyone watching, his voice filling the room as he fired me. Finally, he'd put me in my place. Then his office phone rang. Sir, his assistant said nervously, finance is online too. They say there's a problem with the accounts. What kind of problem? Grant snapped. They won't release any payments. Grant frowned. Why not? They said the system is locked. Grant slammed the phone down and stormed out of his office. Why are my approvals not going through? He barked at the finance team. A manager looked up, pale. Sir, we received a legal hold notice. All executive accounts are frozen pending board review. Grant's heart skipped. Who issued it? The manager hesitated. Blackstone Harbor Group. Grant's face drained of color. That's just an investment trust. It owns the majority of Ridgway, the manager whispered. Grant stumbled back a step. Meanwhile, my laptop chimed. Transfer complete. Executive override granted. Nia came back on the line. The board is in chaos, she said. They had no idea you were behind Blackstone Harbor. They are calling an emergency meeting. Grant? I asked. He still thinks this is a glitch, she replied. But he's starting to panic. I closed my eyes and smiled. Inside Ridgeway, Grant's phone rang again. This time, it was the board chair. Get to the boardroom immediately, the voice said. We need to talk about Amara Collins. Grant froze. What about her? The line went dead. For the first time in his career, Grant Holloway didn't feel powerful. He felt hunted. And the woman he just humiliated was the one holding the leash. By the time I stepped out of the underground garage and back into the rain-washed air, Ridgeway Solutions no longer felt like a building I worked in. It felt like a building that was waiting for me. The revolving doors turned slowly as I entered. The lobby, once just a place I passed through, now looked different. Bigger, louder, more fragile. I could feel the tension in the marble floors beneath my heels. Phones were ringing everywhere. Security guards whispered into radios. Employees huddled near the elevators, eyes wide, afraid to ask what was happening but too anxious to pretend everything was normal. I walked past them calmly. No badge, no escort, no apology, just certainty. When I reached the executive elevator, it was already waiting. Someone had called it down for me. The doors slid open. Inside, a single button glowed. E. Executive level. I pressed it. As the elevator climbed, my phone buzzed again. Nia Harrington. They are spiraling, she said. Grant's been locked out of 3 financial systems and 2 executive dashboards. He's shouting at everyone. Good, I replied. Let him feel what powerless sounds like. The board just received the final trust verification. They know you control the company now. They want to see you. I'm on my way. The elevator doors opened to chaos. Executives stood in clusters, whispering. Assistants hurried down the halls with armfuls of documents. A few people stared when they saw me, confused, then shocked, then suddenly very, very respectful. One woman gasped quietly. That's her. I walked straight to the boardroom. The doors were open. Inside, Grant Holloway stood at the head of the table, shouting, This is a mistake. A clerical error. She's a nobody. Then he saw me. The room went silent. I stepped inside. Every board member turned toward me. Every screen on the wall displayed the same thing. Blackstone Harbor Group, 61.3% ownership, controlling authority, Amara Collins. Grant's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. You can't be serious, he whispered. I took the seat at the head of the table. I've always been serious, Grant, I said calmly. You just never bothered to look. Nia stood beside me, sliding a thick stack of files across the table. Wrongful termination, workplace harassment, retaliation, discrimination, executive abuse of power. Grant stared at the folders like they were explosives. You set me up, he said hoarsely. No, I replied. You exposed yourself. One of the board members cleared his throat. Miss Collins, we didn't know. That's the point, I said. You weren't supposed to. Grant dropped into a chair. You pretended to be an employee. I was an employee, I said. I just happened to own the place. The room shook with that truth. Grant's voice cracked. Please, you don't understand what this company needs. I built. You bullied, I interrupted. You lied. You used people. And today, you tried to erase me. I leaned forward. That was your last mistake. Nia looked at the board. Effective immediately, Mr. Holloway's executive privileges are revoked. His employment status is under review. He will surrender his access codes and vacate the premises. Grant looked around the room. No one met his eyes. Security stepped inside. And for the first time in his career, Grant Holloway had no one left to protect him. Grant didn't fight when security approached him. That was the saddest part. He just sat there, hands trembling, staring at the company logo on the glass wall like it might explain how his world had collapsed so fast. I gave this place everything, he whispered. No, I said softly. You took everything. There's a difference. Security escorted him out, carrying a cardboard box filled with the pieces of a life he thought was permanent, a framed award, a leather notebook, a gold pen. The same way I had been forced to leave hours earlier. But this time, the silence in the hallway belonged to him. The door closed behind him. And just like that, the storm ended. The The board members slowly turned toward me. No anger. No arrogance. Just fear and respect. Darius Blake cleared his throat. Miss Collins, what would you like to do now? I leaned back in the chair that had once belonged to the man who tried to erase me. Now, I said, we rebuilt this company the right way. Over the next weeks, everything changed. Executives were replaced. Departments were restructured. Harassment policies were enforced, not just written. Tasha, the young analyst who'd whispered her apology to me, was promoted within a month. And me? I stayed. Not as a ghost. Not as a secret. But as the woman whose name was finally on the door. Sometimes power doesn't arrive with a spotlight. Sometimes it walks in quietly, waits to be underestimated, and then takes everything back. And that was how the woman they tried to fire became the woman who owned it all. If this story made you smile, if you felt that sweet moment when power finally answered to truth, then go ahead and tap the like button right now. And make sure you subscribe to Tales by Laura, and also turn on your notifications, because this channel is where the ignored rise, the betrayed get justice, and the women they try to silence end up owning the room. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been underestimated the way Amara was? And where in the world are you listening from today? Your story might be the next one I tell. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it doesn't scream or threaten. Sometimes it just walks back into the building and takes its rightful seat at the head of the table. They thought I was small. They thought I was powerless. They thought I was easy to erase. But power doesn't disappear. It waits. Thank you for listening to Tales by Laura, where every story reminds you that the woman they overlooked today might own their future tomorrow. Until next time, stay strong, stay watching, and never forget who you are.